Hello. Hey, what's up, you guys? It's Tench JK. How you guys doing? All good? I'm glad. Yeah, I know. It's gone. I'm glad that it's gone too. It's like a burden lifted off of me. Um, Anyways, it's kind of awkward to make videos again, but I've been getting some emails, and I just really wanted to talk about this. This is kind of where I'm at in my life, and I thought that it would be something that I could talk about today. Um, Miss Cruz, right? She emailed me a while back. She said, Tenchi, I have a couple of questions. How did you find peace in God? When and what made you follow God? I really would like to know. I stopped believing in Him a long time ago because of my past. I thought that blaming someone for my unhappiness would make it alright, but I now know that it's not good, and I would like to fix this. Anyways, I hope you're doing good, Tenchi, and live a happy life with no regrets. Bye for now. How did I find peace with God? Unlike some people, I didn't have the opportunity to be an atheist. I was born into that kind of family. I always knew that there was God and that He was watching over me, and that I was very aware of sin at a young age. So I never really had a chance to be like a full-blown atheist, right? Like doubting God. But I definitely had my battles with it because, like most people, there's a lot of temptations out in the world. There's a lot of sin. There's a lot of things you ought not to do, but you want to do anyways. And when somebody tells you that you can't do something, it makes you want to do it more. And that's kind of like my situation. I always had this mask on, thinking that I was a good person, I was going to church, that I was a good church boy, and so on. But deep in my heart, I wanted to do everything that they wanted to do. You know what I mean? I just wanted to do what they do, and I felt so trapped. And so my peace with God, I never really had that when I was young, to be honest. I wish that, like, growing up, that I always had it and that everything was good. But there was always this uneasiness about me in my life, this fear. It's kind of like the Jews in the Bible, right? There's the Jews and the Gentiles, right? God chose the Jews to be His oracle, right? To be the people that other people would follow, because they had the law of God, right? They knew what not to do and what to do, right? It didn't mean that they were better than us. They just knew what to do and what not to do. They had the law. Meanwhile, the Gentiles, the Koreans, Japanese people, all these other people out in the world, they didn't have the law. So they were judged by their heart, right? People know what is good and what is bad through their heart. And because of this, knowing something, you ever heard this cliche saying that ignorance is bliss? And I really think so. It's because I knew what not to do. I read the scriptures. It tells me to not lie, to not commit adultery, don't lust, don't steal, don't blaspheme God. There's so many different laws, and to know them and to like see it on paper, it makes you kind of paranoid in your life, right? Because you're just kind of like, oh, I shouldn't do this, but I do it anyways. You're so much more aware that you're committing sin. So for me, there was no peace. All day I'm stressing out. Every day I'm just like, oh, I did this again. Oh, I did that again. I did this again. And so in the beginning, because I had a faulty idea of what the gospel was, believe me, I went to churches all over the place. My dad was a pastor. We were digging into the Bible, but we had a very faulty understanding of what the Bible was, or what the gospel was, the good news of God or Jesus Christ. And so every day I would follow this idea that I have to go and pray and ask for forgiveness, right? Like a criminal goes up to a judge and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry for this and I'm so sorry for that." And I'm just listing down my sins. And I would cry, and some people would cry louder than others, just to one up somebody. And that's kind of what we did in church. And at the end of the day, after like hours or 2 hours or 3 hours of prayer, we would come out feeling like justified, right? We'll feel like, all my sins are washed away. I felt good. But then the next day, I would do the same thing all over again. There was no change in my heart, no genuine foundational change. It was just kind of this outside, temporary thing. And then I'll go right back into it. And so I don't blame other people who are looking into Christianity and saying that we're a bunch of hypocrites, because yeah, it is. It's like number one hypocrisy, because you know what not to do, but yet you still do it. But you kind of feel this like self-righteousness about it. Like, I'm doing something good and you're not. And then we point fingers, and that's, we're adding hypocrisy to our sin list, if you will. So that's my life. Just no peace. No peace with God, no peace with other people. Just this proud, Pharisaic mind, just kind of thinking that I'm better than people because I'm following God. But God knew better. He wanted to show me through my own life, through my failures, through my sin, that I was not righteous. And for some reason, God always showed me the Bible in Romans. I don't know why. Romans was something that I chose to read. It's very cut and dry, and it's very in your face, but it's something that always stuck with me, Romans. And in Romans chapter 8, or was it 7 or something like this, it tells you, let me just paraphrase for you. It says that there is none righteous, no, not one. That means there's nobody in this planet that is righteous. It's so easy to see that nobody is righteous. Everybody sins. Everybody does wrong, right? And I'm sure there are better people than others, right, in our eyes. And it's kind of obvious too. Some people just have like a better heart than others, right? They're so much nicer and just kinder than others, right? But it doesn't mean that they're perfect either. Nor do they have, they probably have some secrets in their heart too, and things that we can't see, So in that sense, God is saying that none is righteous. And it says everybody's fallen short of the glory of God. Whatever God's glory is probably beyond what we could even imagine. We can't even imagine Everest. I watched that movie Everest the other day. Good movie, kind of slow. But it's like human beings are trying so hard to try to get up to the top of the mountain, and they all end up dying, like just a bunch of people just die because they're trying to master a mountain. But God created that mountain, and that mountain is an anthill compared to God. And so if we can't even reach on top of the mountain, how are we going to try to reach God's glory? You see what I mean? It's just so beyond us. So beyond. And what God is telling us, that whatever my standard is, what God's standard is, you've fallen short. You can't even reach the mountain. I'm way beyond that. You didn't even come close. You can't come close. So that is our lot, right? That is our situation. None is righteous. No, not one. But yet, everybody has their own self-righteousness, right? The humanists, they have their own way of righteousness, that they themselves are gods, right? The pseudo-fake Christians, all the different, branches, they think that they have their own sense of self-righteousness, and so do all the different religions out in the world. They all have their way of trying to become righteous, but usually on their own merit, you see? They try to do it with their own strength, their goodness, the little goodness that they have. They try to like emphasize that goodness. But God is saying that little thing ain't nothing. Like, you've fallen so short. You're a dead man walking. You're a sinner. Like, think about it this way. Let's say you're a murderer, right? You are a murderer, and you're caught, and you're going to jail, and you're in front of all these people, and you just killed a bunch of people in your life, right? And then let's say for the next 25, 30, maybe 40 years of your fortunate life, you end up becoming this Mother Teresa type person, and you're just like trying to redeem yourself and yada 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 yada. It don't matter. In 30, 40 years, if the law catches up with you, you're still going to jail. You can't be like to the judge, it's like, look, I know I killed a whole mess of people. I murdered that mother, and I murdered that kid, and I know that was a heinous crime, but for the last 20 years though, I've been doing so much good. I've been like, feeding starving kids and like building shelters for the homeless. Oh man, you got to see my resume of all the good things I've done. And then the judge is going to be like, I'm glad that you did that, but you're still going to jail. I'm sorry, you're going to jail for life, bro. You're done. You're done for. I mean, as harsh as that scenario is, it's kind of the same way with God. It's like we try to put up our good deeds, all our good deeds, and say, God, look at this. I did this. I did that. But God's like, look, I appreciate that you're trying to do that, but what about all the other stuff that you've done? You're already a sinner. You're already fallen short. And the wages of sin is death, which means that whatever your sin cost, the value of that sin is death. But we've sinned more than once. And I mean, there is a price to pay. You know, we live such a short life, and at the end there is a price to pay. Right? So what is that price? I mean, that's the thing that, as a Christian, right? As a Christian person, I don't like talking about that part. But you know what we're talking about is hell, the lake of fire. Now, when we talk about the lake of fire, and it's something that nobody should really take out of the gospel, because that is why it is the gospel. Without hell, without the lake of fire, why is it the gospel? The good news. What? Just you got saved. Saved from what? Just saved from your life? That's hardly the gospel. But the reason why it's the gospel is because there is a true punishment after death. Whatever you've done, whatever I've done, that's recorded in the book. Whatever the book is. Look, the easiest way for me to understand this concept was this. There was this passage in the Bible that says whatever is in heaven, well, actually, whatever is on earth is a reflection of what is in heaven. You see, it's like a mirror. Whatever is terrestrial, oops, this thing shut off on me. Whatever is terrestrial is a copy of something celestial, right? So the judicial system, they have something like that up there. Their heavenly judicial system, right? All these different things that we have here, this is like the crappy version. Like, think about like a statue and a drawing. Earth is like a drawing, and then, you know, heaven is like an actual statue, like 3-dimensional, and you could touch it and feel it and so on. But probably a little beyond that, right?